a new developer interview has been published about the homesteads of Guild Wars 2, giving us more information how they work and how they were developed. So let's get into it. Subscribe to the channel for more content. This gonna make off if you want to support me. There we go. And let's go. So we have this one right here. We have a lot of information from the trailer. I'll leave it in the description. It's a good trailer. It explains most of the things, but we have a little bit more. Actually, even Grouch, the game director, tweeted this, just saying that, hey, you know, this is a new interview with Homestead's team just dropped. So pretty interesting, I think. And we have a little bit of information, and we're gonna go through all of it. I'm just gonna read it all and give you my beautiful thoughts about the, well, what it means and what it could mean in the future as well. And also some criticisms, because I did read it, and I think there's a few things that I mean, I wouldn't say like get me insanely worried, but there are things to consider or get better eventually. So, player housing in an online game is a surprisingly fascinating topic. It's an often requested feature because it adds to the fantasy of role playing in a virtual world, but implementing it can have a rolling array of knock-on effects if developers don't consider supply of the digital land. That is true. This is a very old game. Putting homesteads, pouring player housing will have a big impact in terms of how people play the game, but also on the economy of the game. Arena thankfully did not run into these problems while developing the next expansion of Guild Wars 2, titled Janther Wilds. As developer Joel Eckert, Rick Lovers, and Andrew Gray put in a recent interview with the game developer, their goal with the game is new homesteads feature wasn't to build fully implemented neighborhoods, but to add a new set of spaces for players to customize and make their own. Or, as Lovers quipped, construction injuries were not something we needed to simulate. Neither were drastically high housing costs or tyrannical homeowners associations. So this is obviously kind of like a little bit of a hit on the Final Fantasy XIV system. I am not entirely I don't exactly know how that one works, but I do know that there's a lot of issues in terms of how you acquire the houses, how you can maintain them, as you have to pay and you have to bid on certain houses in order to get them. In this case, everyone is getting their own homestead. There's not really something to, you know, you're not gonna lose your house just because you didn't pay your sub or you didn't pay the actual I don't know if we would say tax, but the rent, I guess, in game that you would have to do it. You wouldn't lose it. You'll always have it, which is very important, I think. The homesteads feature makes for a fascinating case study on how other online games can evolve for their loyal audience. Arena dodged one bullet by making housing unlimited in supply, but still face challenges to ensure homesteads fit into Guild Wars 2 gameplay without trampling this existing experience. And it's actually a very good point because, for example, WoW had garrisons, and those garrisons, even though they had some cool stuff, made the gameplay of the game very bad, and nobody liked them, even though it's a feature that it should be overall positive, because you were forced to be inside of it to gather materials, because you had every type of you know, thing that you would need in a garrison, like your action house, your bank, everything. You would just stay there and not go into the open world ever, which is definitely not what was intended, and they went too far on it. And apparently, according to this article, this is not gonna happen with Guild Wars 2. I do think there's gonna be a little bit of this, and you know, getting the balance for people to leave the homesteads compared to the time that they spend on them is going to be a difficult thing to do. I am actually, what's the word? I do believe it's going to be the case. I don't think this is going to be a big problem, considering how much cool content we have in Guild Wars 2. And of course, that content must probably be done in order to decorate your homesteads in the first place. I just really hope that we don't get your banks, your trading posts, literally everything in our homesteads. I think that would be probably not good. Maybe one thing is fine, but we should be going to hubs, like the Wizard's Tower, for example, from time to time as well, I think. Guild Wars 2 housing feature is built on its existing decorating tools. When an MMORPG has run for as many years as Guild Wars 2 has, many loyal players become motivated by an urge to personalize their characters. But after you've shipped thousands of armors upgrades, Gray said you start to run out of real estate on the body. Pun intended. Okay, well, I think that is kind of true. Like, you know, I have a lot of sets. I have almost every weapon in the game. A few exceptions, of course, especially legendaries, but regardless. And eventually, you kind of run out of ways to show them. Yeah, you can have multiple fashion sets and whatever, and you can rotate through them, but it kind of gets annoying. At some point, you're like, man, I want to show how much I have, but how do I do it? How do I do it while not at the same time, you know, changing fashion every day? And there's not really a good answer, but guess what, you know, with the homestead, putting your fashion, your weapons inside of your homestead for all other people to see and for you to be proud of, is going to be a good way of doing it. And I think that is definitely one of the biggest reasons why homesteads are so good. Guild Wars 2 already possessed customizable spaces, the shared guild halls and arenas that can be assembled by groups of players gathered into guilds. In these halls, players can decorate the space with walls, flags, monuments, and even custom lighting. That meant Arena had existing decoration technology to build off of and wasn't starting from scratch. Now that is actually very interesting as well. Like, guild halls will actually get upgraded because of homesteads. All of the upgrades that we got on homesteads in terms of how the system works, in the way that it plays decorations and all this stuff, are things that will be adapted to guild hall as well. And I think this will make both features way better. Guild halls for bigger community events, homesteads for more of a personal touch instead. I also found it here that they say custom lighting. I was actually checking Final Fantasy XIV's housing, and I was very surprised over how they actually handle with lighting in their housing system. I wonder if they're gonna do something else with homesteads in custom lighting as well. We'll have to see. Maybe they just mean like putting different decorations that have lighting that makes things go darker or lighter. We'll see though. Homesteads aren't located into the general world though. They're private instances each player can acquire, though they can only get one per account. That makes sense, I think, especially when you have 30 alts on. You can have 30 alts on your homestead as well, just chilling there. When they enter the homestead, they will find a simple building with a few decorations already placed. Eckert explained that during this time on The Sims 4, yeah, because Eckert was one of the developers of Sims 4, and probably one of the reasons why this feature is so well done, he learned that many players needed existing decorations in place to not be intimidated by a blank slate and seemingly endless possibilities. On The Sims, what he found out was that there was a large amount of the player base that needed some example to jump off of, he recalled. He allowed to how writers like yours truly can be intimidated by a basic blank page. You're just presented with a lot of freedom, but also that freedom can be kind of scary sometimes, and I completely agree. I don't know if you guys know this, but I actually studied music composition, and one of the things, and I didn't really like this teacher at all, but one teacher I remember a lot of times he would say like, freedom is good and it's cool to have like, you know, your whole oyster to do whatever you want, but you have to start with something, otherwise your mind will not have any creativity. As long as you put one little thing, one little rock, one little note, one little chord, your mind will start building upon that thing and create beautiful things. And I think it's the same thing for this. Having a little bit of something to start with, the little homestead, the little farm, the little skiff harbor or whatever, this will make it so our creativity will just spark. And I think that's pretty cool. After deciding to decorate their space, they can also determine what privileges their friends will have them when inviting them over. They can turn on or fall damage and build custom jumping puzzles. Super cool. We can already do this in guild halls, but it is pretty cool that you can do this here as well. And I like the whole falling damage thing. That's pretty nice. They can establish users nodes that they can work together to farm. Also very fun, very interesting. If you really like it, you can put your little farm to do every day. And you can also make it so you can collect it automatic by just pressing one button, which is also very nice. Here's where things get interesting. Home in Guild Wars 2 do not serve the same function as homes in the real world. They aren't even comparable to homes players will assemble in survival games like Minecraft, Rust, or Enshrouded. In Guild Wars 2, players wander out in the world to delve into dungeons and fight raid bosses. Homes aren't exposed to dangers of monsters or outside elements. In some respects, there's much of a space to be visited rather than a place to start and end their day. And I wonder if that means that we're gonna get a bit of a buff if we leave our character parked there, just like we do in other cities like Arborstone or Wizard's Tower. Interesting. That's all intentional on Arena's part, said Gray. Our thoughts were more about how to push her back into the world. Very important thing to do, I think. The team hated the idea that players would feel their homesteads were obligatory to their adventuring experience. Very reassuring. Not every player will enjoy having to grind out resources in their home base before heading out for the day. Yeah, I think that's very good. Not forcing you to stay in the homestead for the whole day. Very important. We want to keep playing the game at the end of the day. This decision had a fascinating ripple effect on creating systems for homestead, like the experience crafting point economies. For instance, even though players are crafting many decorations to place in their homes, the decoration crafting system doesn't use the crafting XP system. It uses what Guild Wars 2 refers as mastery experience, a progression system for players that haven't reached maximum level with a character. Mastery XP is earned by going out in the world in Guild Wars 2 and completing various achievements. Gray explained like this. If a player wanted to make a homestead item that required a high amount of crafting XP, the quickest way to unlock it would be to stand still and just click craft object over and over and over again to crank the number up. If the player goes out into the world and earns mastery XP instead, then they're actually playing Guild Wars 2 while chasing their homesteading goals. Grace said that ArenaNet want homesteads to be engaging for as many players as possible. The studio's goal is that if a player is regularly playing Guild Wars 2 and engaging with the content from its many expansions, then they can count on finding something fun to do with their homestead. Now, it's very interesting. I think it's a very good idea to actually tie to Master XP, so you can just experience the expansion while also working on your homestead. Now, of course, this would only count for the expansion, the current expansion, Giant Wilds content. You will not get master experience from other expansions, which is weird that they would put it right here for many expansions, unless maybe eventually we get multiple homesteads from other expansions as well. We might actually. I think that's definitely a good idea to do. But until then, yeah, it's probably not going to be the case. But yeah, I mean, it's a good system. Adding decorations tools to a 12-year-old game isn't easy. Guild Wars 2 doesn't follow in the footsteps of survival games where players build their homes and decorations brick by brick, because it's an evolution of an existing decoration tool. It's meant to let players enter a fly mode and navigate their camera on the space, placing objects precisely as desired. And it's very funny with the fly mode thing, is a little bee that you can just go around. That's I think that's pretty cute. Playtesting the homestead feature also inspires ArenaNet to design new tools, said Lobers. Players will have access to a wireframe mode in their home area that can render objects in their homestead and easily visible outlines. They're able to see through obstacles and terrains and be better able to find the decorated objects that they misplaced and previously buried in the ground. And we did see this in the video. I wish I had it on. No, unlucky. Where, you know, let's say that this is the floor and there's a decoration. You know, I don't know, the little head is poking out. You will see the entire decoration in the bottom as well, just to see, hey, you can move it up, you can move it down. A very good quality of life feature, I think, for you to decorate correctly. Expanding the existing decoration tool came with some self-inflicted tech debt. ArenaNet decided that if it was going to update the existing decoration tools for homesteads, they needed to be retroactively updated for Guild Wars halls as well. Yes, that is very true. After all, there will still be players more invested in decorating their guild stomping grounds than their own home. Leaving them with simpler systems could lead to unnecessary disappointments. Yeah, very important. Like, at the end of the day, some people really like the idea of sharing your place with other people and letting them decorate. And of course, you can do this in homesteads, but there's a big difference between having a personal homestead and a guild hall for your entire guild. And I think both should exist in the same time for different purposes and for different type of people. Then there's maybe the more important issue. Updating how decorative objects work across Guild Wars 2 would break how those objects work with the old decorating tools. Entire homes would be thrown into ruin. Obviously, that's not an agreeable outcome. Oh my god, so hard to read English. Maybe the biggest limitation, Grace said, was the data storage of an older game can be completed task. This game is very old, like over 10 years now, so, and you know, we have seen a lot of bugs coming out of random different things that they have updated just because of the entanglement of the code. That's why players are only allowed one homestead per account that's shared across all their characters. Gray recalled that the team was trying to figure out the maximum amount of inhabitable space, the number of decorations, all sort of things that could allow us to push the envelope. If every player character were allowed to have a homestead versus every player account, it would be drastically shrink how expensive homesteads could be. Yeah, I think that's a fair way of doing it. I don't think we need more than one homestead per account. I think that's fine. Maybe eventually, when we have multiple places, the multiple homesteads types, like one in Yanther, one in Soto, one in EOD, blah blah blah. Maybe then you can have multiple ones, maybe. But yeah, I think it's completely fair for this way to do it this way. Gray and Lubers made familiar overtures to the idea that adding player housing to an MMORPG needs to obviously be fun before it's realistic. But adding this feature so late into the game life shows the creativity needed to even make such a feature fun. It doesn't simulate a realistic experience of living in a fantasy world, trading ordinary tasks like gathering resources and assembling buildings by the hand, to the process of just giving players easy tools to plop down furniture where they left see fit. But if the purpose of your housing system is self-expression and not survivability, why would players want to simulate the everyday challenges of home ownership? Prioritizing player creativity shows how ArenaNet and other developers can nurture more and more life out of long-running online games, and I completely agree. Another little hit on the Final Fantasy housing system as well, as you can see there. Why would you care about challenges in home ownership, like paying your rent and bidding on a house, when you can just have fun and have your own homestead, and everyone has their own house, while also having some systems that are fun, like the crafting system, to create more decorations. I think this is completely fair, and I think it seems in a lot of ways to be maybe the best housing system in MMOs. Now we'll definitely see if that's the case, and I'm gonna do another video very soon on the comparisons between this homesteads, Guild Wars homesteads, and other MMOs housing systems, and which one is actually the best. Of course, this will probably be updated once it actually launches, but I am interested to compare the features that every one of them have. That being said, thank you very much for watching, guys. Subscribe to the channel for seeing more videos of this and the ones that we're gonna do next, of course. Go to my Ko-Fi or join on membership on YouTube to support my content. Go to my Twitch to watch me live, and see you guys around. Love you all. Bye bye. Beep.